5 scores! Rick Vaughn.
We've decided to get ourselves back in the game again with our podcast.
Rick Vaughn, Gary Nylander.
Probably the craziest story that you're ever going to hear about hockey.
We're going to be coming back to you on a regular basis.
You are listening to Squid and the Ultimate Leafs Fan.
Hello, Canada and hockey fans of the United States and Newfoundland, and an extra big hello to Canadian servicemen overseas.
Welcome, everyone, to the Squid and Ultimate Leafs Fan Show. I'm Mike Wilson, the Ultimate Leafs Fan. Joining me, as always, my winger, Ricky Squid 5. After tonight's Squid, we're down to the Final Four, and the compete level is going to rise another notch. Just what we live for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the funny thing is, you're looking at two really good series that are going to be going on in the Final Four. I mean, everybody, thinks Colorado's going to walk all over Edmonton, but I'm not so sure about that. I mean, Edmonton's been playing pretty damn good. The only difference might be goaltending. I think when it comes to this series,
100%.
But
goaltending.
And then, of course, either the Rangers or Carolina are very capable of beating Tampa as well. So, I mean, it's going to be pretty exciting, and I think I'll be honest, I would not be shocked if both of those series go 6-7 games.
Yeah, I mean, it looks that way. I mean, I can't imagine Edmonton getting away with the kind of goaltending. Smith's been okay, but he's let in some bad ones, and he seems to be like he's skating right down the edge, but maybe that's a sign of things to come. But you're not going to get away with that with Colorado coming at you, like the force they have.
No, I mean, they are a pretty stacked hockey team right now. From the back end, goaltending has been okay. It hasn't been fantastic, but it's been good. But when you look at their defense and their four lines, I mean, wow, they've got a heck of a hockey team, and they got a lot of speed. They got skill. They got physical players. I mean, they are a very, very solid team.
Yeah, and this other series with them, and this Tampa team's been sitting around for a week, but this one, thank God, it's over after tonight. I just got I can only watch this Carolina Rangers series in bits and spurts. It just doesn't seem to have the same feel as the other series do.
Well, I mean, Carolina hasn't. They're 7-0 at home, and they're 0-6 on the road.
I mean, come on. Well, I guess if you're a betting guy, you would go Rangers tonight, just for that to break the spell at some point.
You would think
pretty good odds.
But I'm not a betting guy, so
no,
not on those two teams anyway, because you never know what you're going to get out of them. And it's funny because the only time I ever remember was a year that I finished in Rochester, my last year in Buffalo. We went to the semifinals. We lost to Adirondack. Barry Melrose was coaching. They played Newfoundland in the final, and all the road teams won every single game. And Newfoundland had home ice, and Adirondack won all 4 games in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland won all 3 games in Adirondack. So anything can happen, right?
That's got to be one for the books. You don't see that too often where teams do that.
No.
That's a complete reversal. Usually the first game of a playoff series, the home team is at a bit disadvantage. The away team usually can upset them, but to have that done 4 times, that's quite something.
Oh, yeah. It was crazy watching it and following it, and I couldn't believe it, actually. It was just 7 games, and the road team won every single time.
While Squid, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Jason Spezza. Not surprisingly, retires, takes the front office job, and not totally shocked by that either. As a special assistant to Kyle Dubas, but the role is not really defined as of yet. They're going to discuss it in a year. What are your thoughts? I mean, well, actually, let's just say this. We did suggest at the beginning that an assistant would be good for Dubas to work with, and we had our choice had been Dale Talon. But having said that, the respect Spezza has gained around the club, this could maybe lead to bigger things down the road for him.
Yeah, it could. And Jason's a pretty smart kid. Well, when I say kid, I call him a kid, but he's 30, 37 or
39,
whatever.
39.
Or 39. Okay.
He's a kid compared to you and I.
He's not close to us, though, Mike.
Not even close, man.
But, I think a conversation went on that, like, well, we'd like to have you back, but we just can't really fit you in here. But we'd like to keep you around in the organization. And I'm sure that's how it all kind of got started. And lo and behold, he's moved in there. And you know what? I think he's going to do a good job. I think he'll find a place somewhere in there. I don't know if it'll be assistant to the general manager necessarily, but at some point he'll find a job in that organization that suits him very well.
Well, here's something to speak to in this. And what I like about the fact that they're going to give him, there's something like used to happen in the brokerage business where I was. They bring in the recruits and they'd work in different departments for a year to get a feel for where their skill sets sort of blended with the firm, or where they get a feel for where they feel comfortable. Now, from a player's perspective, how, if any, do player relationships in the room change with the player along these lines? I think you know where I'm going to go with this. I mean, I've had guys, well, think about this now. Like, I've had guys tell me they've even just moved to the media, and players look at them kind of guarded now, like, what can I say to you now? Because I don't want to be hearing it on the air or reading about it in a magazine article in the newspaper. Management's a whole different level. And it was like, as an example, you went through this with like Dan Maloney. I mean, it's tough having beers with a guy on the road discussing how to beat an opponent or bashing a coach or the owner. And now all of a sudden, as your boss, he's reaming you out in your office because you haven't scored for 3 games or something like that. It's a little different feel for you.
Yeah. I mean, how active he's going to be with the players, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously he's going to be, probably following Kyle around, learning what's going on and trying to find his niche in whatever he wants to do with the organization. So I don't know if he's going to have a lot of conversations with the players, but it would be pretty awkward for him to come in and start talking to the players, because they're going to be like, oh, he's management now. Like, I better be careful what I say.
Talk about you guys with Maloney, how you guys went through that with him. That was tough.
That was very difficult. The first 2 years were the first year was really tough. The second year, about halfway through the year, he started coming around, started, understanding what it was like and treating us with a little bit more professionalism. And then just at the point where he was becoming a good coach and a good communicator, they wouldn't give him more than a 1-year contract. So off the Winnipeg he goes. So, that's just another Jerry McNamara and Harold Ballard move.
Well, yeah, because that was very tough during that period for you, especially because as captain of the hockey club, he was making you an example to try and set things straight with the room. And I mean, even Russ said, sometimes he went overboard with it to try to establish that, but he was turning into a good coach. And then he finally was starting getting the ground and the respect. So I'd suggest that it's not quite the same being in a role that Spezza is going to have, but to a degree, he's going to have to earn the players' respect again, from that they can trust him and they can be open with him and so on and so forth. All those things you use for when you're working with people. Absolutely. There's no question that he's going to have to earn their trust. And the fact that, hey, I'm not going to go to Kyle everything you tell me and tell him everything and that sort of thing. I want to have a conversation with you. It stays between us. Dan was a different situation. At first, he kind of took it out on all the young guys. And then one of the young guys, and it was the guy you mentioned, Russ, went to Jerry McNamara and said, Dan's yelling at all the young guys. So he told McNamara told Maloney, you cannot yell at the young guys anymore. So then he started taking it out on us because we were the only ones left. Well, so it's a really fine line. The role I would like to see Jason is I like to see him working with the players. And, the guy, one of our pet projects is somebody like Pierre Engvall, who we've talked about, who just needs that little push of confidence to get him going. But I think really where he can make strides, and this is where they really have to step up. And Kyle's been really vocal about this, about the Marlies. It's about goddamn time these guys have to step up, and they've got to come not just to show up at camp in good shape and work hard. They got to come up with the intention. They're coming to steal a job, period. No questions asked. I know every player has that attitude, but listen, the guy we had on the show last week, Matthew Barnaby, and if you haven't listened to that first part of the 2 parts here we did with him, I highly recommend listen. This guy's so candid and direct and funny. He's one of the best interviews we've had. Listen, this guy, first day training camp at the Sabres, said, who's the toughest guy? Rob Ray. He fought him 3 times in 15 minutes, got beat up 3 times in 15 minutes, although he said, no, I did a little better in the third one. But even Rob Ray said to him, okay, kid, enough. Like I'm tired of beating you up. But he wouldn't stop. And by the end of camp, management said to him, we normally carry 20. You're going to be the 21st guy. We don't know what we're going to do with you. We're going to find a spot for you. And guess what? The guy's staying in the National Hockey League 15 years. That's
absolutely.
That's what you need. That's what these kids have to bring to camp next summer or next September.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. I mean, they're in a situation where they need 3 to 5 guys to step up and grab jobs with the Maple Leafs and then go out and perform the way they're capable of. And, of all years, this coming year is going to be the most crucial that they have 3 to 5 guys move up and take jobs and then go out and have decent years in the National Hockey League.
No, you're right. I mean, guys like Brent Senny, Alex Steves got a taste last year. Robinson, who's got a leg up on these guys. Well, you know what? Take the leg away from them. They got to go in there with you and tell me, I'm going to play in front of you. Joey Anderson, no excuse. He's playing in the National Hockey League. He's played with New Jersey. He's got NHL experience, scored 26 goals last year. Come in and take a job. Now, I know if he was sitting on the point, he goes, Mike, what do you think we want to do? Like, I want to make it. But, or a Josh Hosang. He's another one. You know what? Enough. Go and get him. I mean, I know we're pounding on these guys, but this is what you guys got to come in with that attitude. And I think this is where Spezza can give these guys a kick in the butt and work with them. Yeah,
I think you're right. I mean, I think he could sit down and have candid conversations with them, I think, about that and maybe light a little bit of a fire under their rear end and get them moving.
Well, yeah, and the idea being, guess what? If you're not going to do it, we're going to bring in the next bunch that will. Mm-hmm. So in other words, your job at the Marlies isn't safe either. We're okay with this. This is a lost leader for us to develop players. So if we have to move guys in and out, we will, because we're going to find the guys that are going to step up in this lineup because we're so close. We're right there. And as an example, that's Spezza money now, even though it's so small. And I mean, I'm being told that by guys that he would have played for even less if it was possible, but they would allow him because he had to play the minimum. But someone like Colin Blackwell, give him a full year playing on that fourth line and use that. He's not going to cost any more than what they cost Spezza. Give him a shot and let him go with it. Yeah. And now the other thing we got to talk about, Squid, is leadership. We're talking about the leadership. Well, you know what? Enough of that, two guys. No more excuses. You got Mark Giordano, who's been a captain on 2 teams. Muzzin's got the experience of the Stanley Cup. Brody's been there. Tavares is a seasoned vet. Morgan Riley's going into his 10th year. Matthews, Marner, both 6-7 years. These guys aren't kids anymore. You got enough leadership, and no way do I mean this is not against Jason Spezza, but maybe it's time for another voice to be looked to in the room. That does work, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I think it's time the young guys kind of took over the leadership of this team, and they're ready. I think they showed it this year. Marner, Matthews had spectacular years, and show that they can go out and be leaders. And I think it's time for guys like them to step up and kind of join Giordano and Riley and those guys and be leaders of this hockey club. And I certainly think they're capable of it.
Well, the only other thing these guys should be focusing on is watching the cup hoisted by one of their rivals and the look of pure joy and ecstasy on their faces and the knife they're going to feel going into their gut as they're watching that cup hoisted over somebody's head and what could have been. Put it aside and get back to work. Everything that happened in the last 4 years means nothing. Put it aside. It doesn't mean squat. Let the process begin. How can anyone be more than down and out than Evander Kane was? And look what this kid has done coming back and playing in the league. 12 goals in the playoffs so far, and he shut Tate down the last round. Look at this guy. This guy's smelling the Stanley Cup. So you know what? No more excuses.
Yeah, you just hope the hell that Tampa Bay doesn't win it, because then you're sitting there going, "Oh my gosh!"
Oh wow, that's what are you going to say? That's just the way it is, and that'll make the knife even go in a little harder.
Yeah, it'll go right into the spleen or something.
You know what? You want them to feel that pain. Don't look away. Look at that and have tears in your eyes watching that, and motivate yourself that I've got to work just a little bit harder to get there.
Yeah.
Well, Squid, it wouldn't be one of our shows if we didn't go a week without speaking about our favorite, most polarizing player in William Nylander. You called me last week and said, have you seen this clip of him going around from the World Championships? I don't know why I'm laughing. I should be crying. But this clip of him going around running guys at the World Championships, and I mean not just bumping guys just to make it look like to get a hit. This is chasing guys down and running them over. So here's the thing. I know it's a little different facing an opponent that's over several times over the season that's going to push back a lot harder. But still, show a little of that in your game, and you'll move to another level. It's not that difficult. Compete-wise, you'll be better. Trust-wise with the coaches, you'll be in a better books with them. And most importantly, on the score sheet, you'll score more. And
yeah, I mean, and it's not like he's a little guy like Robertson or someone like that. I mean, he's a pretty good size.
He is.
And it's funny because I watched that, and then they had Craig Button on, and he said, I think he's unfairly judged, and the way he plays and everything. He's a great player and all. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Craig, he is a great player. He's got a lot of talent. But when you see what he's doing in the World Championship playing for his country, as opposed to what he does in the playoffs playing for the Maple Leafs, as far as the physical side of it, that's disappointing. I mean, that's very disappointing.
100%. And it's one of those things, do you really want to laugh, you cry? As a fan, you just think, geez, like, do you really, where's that motivation? I mean, bring that heart with you here, please, a little bit.
You know what, though? I will say, one of the things I've noticed over the years, when I played, and throughout the years, for some reason, for the European players, the World Championships and the Olympics mean more than the Stanley Cup to them. I don't get it, but...
Well, they grew up with that. We grew up with the Stanley Cup. They grew up looking at the World Championships and the Olympics. So they're bred that way. But
yeah,
today's world, it shouldn't be that defined, because with the worldwide, like they're remember in those days, back in our day, the 70s and 80s, they were watching a couple games a week, maybe. Now they can watch every game, like every night, and they watch 50 games a night if they want. So so there's no excuse for them not to understand what the significance of it is. So I find
I agree, and I don't want to. I mean, I certainly don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, because they're not all like that. But I mean, it's certainly in the 80s when they first started coming over, that was definitely the way. I mean, that was more important to them than winning a Stanley Cup. Now,
well, think about this.
Things have changed over the years, where the Stanley Cup has become important to them. But when you see what he was doing over there, I'm sorry, but I was laughing my rear end off, because I'm looking at him going, really? Like, he just skated back as hard as he could and knocked the guy flat on his ass. Oh, my God.
Well, I mean, just to your point about that, I remember a couple of years ago when Detroit was out of the playoffs and Pavel Datsyuk was still playing. Now, how do you get any better than him? So they asked him if he was going to join his team right off the bat, and he said, no, he needs a couple of weeks to get in shape first. Like, wait a minute, you just played 82 games, collected $7 million a year, and you got to take a couple weeks to get in shape to go play in the Worlds. Like, I'm the owner, okay, like, what is that all about? Now, guys,
that might have been him really not wanting to go and play there.
Well, I know, but still doesn't sound right. Come up with some other excuse, okay? Sorry.
I know.
that was the best one. Yeah, I can't. I just played 82 games, but got to get in shape, and I'll go to the Worlds. I'll be there in a couple of weeks.
Well, I guess William must have took a week and a half off and got in better shape, I guess, the way he was playing that. that shift.
7 games. He took 7 games off. He just played river hockey for 7 games, and he got himself ready. Training camp.
Now don't be cruel, Mike. Come on.
I know. Now everybody be sending us notes going, oh, you guys are a couple of jerks. But no. Anyway, Squid, quote of the week. While the guys may be still feeling down watching others succeed in front of them, let's not complicate things too much. So we're going to try and keep it simple. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pull a Yogi Berra quote out. Just to keep it very simplified.
I love his quotes, or the majority of them anyway.
I think you like this one.
Okay.
Losing is a great motivator.
Well,
remember, Yogi's
yes,
the obvious, right?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it is. But losing over and over and over again can get pretty frustrating too. And
Well,
it's kind of,
use it as a motivation.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And then that's what they should be thinking about all summer long. It's kind of like, hey, we didn't get the job done. We need to get better. We need to play a little harder. We need to block a few more shots. We need to, whatever the heck it takes. I mean, If you look at Tampa against Florida, especially, I mean, gosh, they were blocking 30, 40, 50 shots a game. And any of them that did get through, they had a brick wall in the net. So
that's going to continue for another couple of rounds, it looks like, or at least one more round, that's for sure. So that's all we have today for you folks. Until next Monday. Monday is a new time. I'm cheating a little bit because I play hockey's now at 4:00 on Wednesday, so it's a little tough to do this. So Mondays now, besides Leafs, we'll do this right up until the free agency. But don't forget to tune into this week's Squid and Ultimate Leaf Fan podcast, part 2 of the Matthew Barnaby interview. We already talked about him, and it's definitely worth a listen. I'm not going to hound you anymore, but do yourself a favor and listen. That one drops Friday at 6 p.m. Also this weekend, I'm trying to get Squid to come with you here if we can get some books. I'll be at the Hockey Expo at the International Center, which runs from Friday till Sunday. Drop by, say hi. I'm happy to discuss anything in the appraisal business, hockey, Leafs, or anything along those lines. Come on by. Maybe you'll get a surprise, and Squid will be sitting with a couple books to sell. So we're waiting on if we can get some for him or not to sell. But if in the meantime, drop by and say hi anyway. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you next Monday. Well, I was going to say now, Barney, 95-98, that period, you have 2 solid years offensively. Another year not as strong as those, but you put almost 900 minutes and penalties up. So you're obviously being well-known throughout the league and making your presence felt. More as an agitator at that point, but did you continue to motivate yourself to play that way, or did you just feel it was expected of you to play that way?
Ooh, that's a great question. Listen, I was always an agitator. If someone had to ask me what my role was, I was an agitator. I want to get under people's skin. I want to draw penalties, let the power play go out and score. I thought there was potential for me to play and play on a higher line as we went through, but also willing to fight the heavyweights if that was necessary or because I overstepped the line. So I consider myself an agitator. I didn't do anything because it was expected. I did it because I thought it was what I needed to do to create a name or a persona and create a role. And so that's why I did it, not because it was expected or people wanted it. It's because I knew how I had success in junior, and I tried to bring that over to the NHL because, I was never going to be a scorer in the NHL. I could put up 40 points at times, or I don't even know what my biggest number was, but I knew I could put up those kind of numbers. But also in the role that I played, there could be 15 games where I'd go without a point. That's just the fact of not playing on special teams. You can go 15 games without putting on a point, playing 12 minutes a night or 13 minutes a night with some bad luck. So I know the one thing I could control was to be a pain in the ass, to play really hard, and to fight some of the big guys once in a while, or when we went down 2-0, to stir stuff up and make sure that the other team knew that I was in the game. Therefore, my fans would know that I was in the game, making you a popular player. Always the top scorers, if you have a really good goaltender, and the fighters. Those are the jerseys that are sold most along the way. So if you can create that persona and that role, you make yourself very valuable.
Okay, so I got a question for you. Was Jim Pizzatelli your athletic trainer at the time?
Oh yeah.
Did you get a robe?
I have a picture. I'm actually going to stand up really quick. I'm going to stand up really quick. So this, I don't know if the camera.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah.
The robe. Oh, we got that picture.
You got that picture. Okay.
There it is there. Yeah.
There you go. You have a great producer right there. That's pretty fucking awesome.
That's Glenn Dreyfus.
By the way, I did about 300 push-ups before that photo shoot. And all the guys were like, why the fuck are you doing push-ups before the photo shoot? I go, because they asked me to have my shirt off. And I, not doing Sports Illustrated, was looking like I'm absolutely jacked. So, yeah. So I'm dehydrated there, and my right arm looks awesome. Bad tribal band, though. But yeah, Jimmy set up a lot of fights.
But you got a robe. That was Pizza's big thing, was the robes. And I remember him handing them out to certain guys. And I think when Rob got his, Rob Ray, Brad May didn't take very long for him to get one. In fact, his first NHL game, he played on my line. I can't remember who our right winger was. I mean, our centerman. And we had to play against Mario Lemieux and Yager. And he was terrified. Like, he was sitting in there going back and forth before the game. Like, and then we went out. I think we each had 2 points, and they got nothing, that line. So that was a good start for him.
I love Maisie. I love Maisie.
Now, Barney, I was going to ask you, Barney, watching you in those days, and we're going back to when I originally talked to you, I thought maybe you would have liked to maybe have given a chance to be a little bit more of an offensive player, but you answered that question. But it seemed to me you enjoyed playing the villain. I mean, you always had a smile on your face, and it seemed to get wider the more you got under opponents' skins, and especially the fans.
I relished it. I loved it. If I wasn't getting booed or shit thrown at me or death threats in a different city or whatever it may be, Philadelphia especially, then I wasn't doing my job. That's unequivocally yes. Is there points that I wish that I could have been more offensive? Yes, absolutely. I wish do I think I could have scored 500 points in the NHL? Yes. Do I think I could have got 750? No, absolutely not. Now, I would have played even longer if I didn't have the role that I did. I would have played another 5-6 years for sure if it was today's NHL. But I wouldn't change the role that I played because I really enjoyed it. Now, I might regret that in 15 years when I'm sucking out of the straw and had 12, 13 concussions and 400 fights. But no one made me fight. No one made me do. I found a role that was very successful. It would have been nice to score, 400, 500 points, but I'm happy with the role that I played. Hopefully, I had a thing sent to me the other day that I tweeted out. Like I said, when Rick, you've written a book, so to me, the most important thing when I look back, I didn't win a Stanley Cup. I wish I would have won a Stanley Cup. Do I regret it? No, I did everything I could. I just wasn't in a position to play on a team that won a Stanley Cup. There's a lot better players than me that haven't won a Stanley Cup, and there's a lot worse players than me that have won a Stanley Cup. It's just I wasn't in the right place at the right time, and that just happened that way. But I got something sent to me from New York Rangers from our team psychologist. And it was attributes as you as a player and as a person. And the stuff that was written there means as much to me as my NHL career, because it's what my players thought of me while I was playing with them. That's unequivocally what I want to be as a person, how I treat people, and how people ultimately feel about me. I don't care if I don't know you. I don't really give a fuck what you think about me. But people that I play with and I'm close with, I hope they think I'm a good person. And I just hope my girlfriend thinks I have an average sized penis, maybe a little bigger.
Well, I got to,
Don't answer that one.
One of the things, no, I'm not going to answer that. But I think you brought it up. Like, I mean, your goal when you go into, because I remember we weren't allowed to stay up to watch the hockey games in PEI growing up because it was later. But my father woke me up every single year when the Stanley Cup was presented to the winning team. So going into the National Hockey League, that was your goal, win the Stanley Cup. Never even got close, And, do you regret it? But then again, you look at the teams that when I was in the league, you had the Islanders, you had the Oilers, you had the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
I mean, well, unless you're on one of those teams, you weren't winning a Stanley Cup. So.
Yeah.
I was going to say to you, Barney, okay, so now you're involved in lots of famous incidents, but one in particular was the one with the Flyers and Garth Snow. Do you want to walk through that one and how that all unfolded?
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'd fought him the year before, just like threw a thing in a scrum, whatever. And it wasn't anything, but Garth loved, he loved that part of the game. So how that incident all transpired was I was cross-checked pretty hard. And I just lost my win as I was in front. I think it was Sean Antosky that had hit me. A bigger guy, tough guy. But I also knew, like, if I stay down, like, my guys are coming to my defense. So there's no question. Brad May was on the ice. Bob Bugner. I know who's on the ice with me at all times. I know who's on the other team who's on the ice for them. So they do come flying in and whatever. And then I'm laying there and Jim Pizzelli comes out to make sure I'm okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I said, I'm a little winded, but I'm fine. And I just remember asking him, is he alone? Is Snowy there by himself? And I was like, because he's going to do something stupid soon. I know it. Everyone else is in a 5-on-4 brawl pretty well. And he's like, yeah. I said, if he comes near me, just be careful because I'm going to jump up. And he's like, okay. And we stayed down. There comes Snowy over and he tickles me a little bit. And he's like, you're a pussy. And I pushed Jim out of the way. And you have about 10 seconds because everyone else and the refs are with the other guys. So I got about 30 shots in about 10 seconds on a goalie, which was awesome. And then Rod Brindamore came in, and Rod's very strong, but he's not a good fighter. So then we had our fight after, but yeah, I loved giving it to Snowy. And then we became teammates in Pittsburgh. So I used to always tell him after interview, whatever, I go, do you want me to bring up the video? Like, I crushed it. I win. You never win in this one.
Yeah, so Matthew, I guess that had to be kind of, well, I don't know what it was, good or bad, ugly. The year that Buffalo goes to the Stanley Cup Final and you get traded to Pittsburgh that year, like, how did that make you feel? And with everything that happened, of course, they lost with the foot in the crease by Brett Hall. But what was that like?
Probably, I don't want to say the hardest thing. I went through definitely way harder things than that. But those were, this was my own volition as well. So I had asked to be traded because Ted Nolan was fired. Okay. So I had asked to be traded when Ted Nolan didn't come back right away. I asked to be traded. Then I was paid $50,000 not to run Dominic Hasek, just to keep me happy at the time. So this went on for about a year and a half, and eventually I was traded to Pittsburgh. So, you go there, and I'm with Yager and Straka and Lang and Kovalev. Man, we had a pretty good team. We ended up losing to Toronto in the second round after beating Jersey, and Buffalo ends up winning and playing Toronto. So now you're cheering, like, I'm not thinking about Buffalo. I'm just thinking about when you get traded, who's the guy you get traded for? Stu Barnes. He went on a 15-game streak where he didn't score a point or a goal, whatever it was. And I was the happiest man on earth because you always want them to think that you're the better player, right? Like, oh my God, like Stu Barnes is the nicest fucking guy you could ever meet in your life. Like, he is. Yeah. I ended up playing with him in Dallas, the greatest guy, but you're cheering against him because you want to be the man. And we get knocked out of the playoffs. Buffalo's doing really well. They play Toronto, and Stu Barnes is on a heater. Guy The guy can't miss. Like, he's such a good player. He's scoring every night. Buffalo's loving him. Forgot about Matthew Barnaby. And I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, this sucks. So I moved back to Buffalo because that's where my house is. That's where my wife's from. That's where my kids live. That's where all my friends are. So I'm back in Buffalo for this whole Dallas thing. And I'm like, they can't win the cup. Like, they can't win the cup. They win the cup. I'm on suicide watch here. Like, I'm like, take the laces out of my shoes. This is not going to be fun. Now you're in Buffalo. Everyone's wild. Look at them Sabres. I'm like, oh yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, look at them Sabres. Look at them. So fast forward to Game 6. I've been living with this for 2 weeks of misery. Brad May's back in town. We're at Game 6 in a box. We are loaded. When I tell you loaded, we are loaded. And it's overtime, and we're high-fiving in the back of the bus. We're in the back of the box. We're going into the bathroom when Dallas scores and high-fiving, and we're like, come on, they got to pull it out. Now, me and Brad have a tea time the next morning at 8 o'clock at Transit Valley. You know Transit Valley? Yeah. It was where I was a member. And we're in overtime. And we're just like, please, do it now. Do it now, please. Just I'm not a very religious person, but I prayed to God several times during that night to answer my prayers. I was like, Garth Brooks, unanswered prayers. No, I want answered prayers. And they score. Me and Brad fucking erupt in the stands, in the box. We're high-fiving. We're ordering bottles of wine. We are going nuts. Now, you can hear a pin drop in Buffalo. We're like, I don't care. They didn't win the cup. As much as I want it for Buffalo fans and for the players, because they're great guys, that was one of the happiest days of my life.
I was around the next day.
Yeah.
So we end up going to the same bar as all the guys. They are distressed. Me and Brad are drinking Captain Morgan and Cokes out of pitchers of water, the big ones. We couldn't get a cab. We walked 2 miles at 7 o'clock in the morning to get to our tea time.
Oh, God.
Well, Barney makes this next question pretty easy because the next season you go back and you get in a fight with your former teammate, Rob Ray, after having dinner with him the night before. So that obviously was to send a little message. So talk about that whole story.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, right? Like you have them over for dinner and the wife cooks and a couple of bottles of vino. We're just telling stories and whatever. And then you're running around. I'm being an idiot. Like I'm trying to be on the ice and I'm back in Buffalo and whatever it may be. And he says, hey, Lindy said you don't slow down. Like, we got to go. Like, go tell Lindy to fuck off. Yeah, I think I'm not going to slow down. Like, that's not going to happen. So he's like, well, now I have to fight you. And he has to win. Like, he's the tough guy. He's one of the toughest in the league. Like, he's one of the toughest I've ever seen. So we end up like stick swinging incident. And he hits me on the shoulder and I whack him on the neck. And we go at it. And he's not really landing big shots, but he's winning, but he's not landing big shots. And I know he can't punch. I've played with him for 7 years now. I know he can't punch with his left hand. So there's no way. I just have his right arm, just like a seatbelt on his right arm. Don't let go because that can do damage. Left, I was kind of like messing around with it, but if he wants to trade his left with my right, I'll go him any day of the week. But I don't think he's going to want to do that either because he knows he can't throw with the left. And I just have him and I start laughing because he's getting so mad because he's got to win the fight. Because I'm an agitator. He's a tough guy. We're at home. We're in Buffalo. I'm the asshole number one right now. And he can't punch me and I won't let him. And he's getting so mad. And I just start laughing and I start screaming at him at the end. I go, you can't hit me. There's no way you can hit me right now. I don't care how strong you are. I've fought 300 times. I know how to tie up a right arm. Now, if you really go with my left, I was fucked. But thank God he wasn't. So, yeah. He comes to give me a high five after the game, and my wife slaps him and gets in his face. I'm like, whoa, this is my fault. Don't take it out on him. Great guy, great dude, great person, very average hockey player, great for the community.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Razor's a great kid. Well, I still call him a kid, but that's because I'm older. But I played with him, and he was a great teammate. But how many NHL rules were made because of Rob?
Well, at least
I mean,
two.
the sweaters and the elbow pads coming off and all that kind of stuff. Remember they came out with a couple of different rules, the Rob Ray rules.
Yeah, well, him coming out of his shirt, like he used to tie his shoulder pads to his jersey, so he'd slide right out of it. And you don't want to fight a guy without a jersey. I mean, when you have nothing to grab onto, if I didn't have a jersey to grab onto, I'm dead. We're not having this podcast right now, I can guarantee, because he's got a big right hand. Big right hand. So, I mean, you have that. I mean, we were slitting our jerseys. We were Velcroing our jerseys where they'd pull our arm and our arms would just come right out. So, you know, Rip Simonik, our trainer, would have us Velcro stuff. We'd have goalie jerseys made just so we could have our arms if we knew we were going to fight. We had different jerseys. It was just insanity, stupidity, what we were doing just to gain an advantage. And then they make a rule and you find something else. Okay, you can't wear a goalie jersey. All right. Well, let's have Velcro all the way up our sleeve, so when they pull it, it just comes off, and you can't hold on. And if you can't hold on, you're gonna hurt someone.
Now, whose idea were all these? They had to be pizzas.
I'd say it was a conglomerate. I'd say it was everyone. Yeah, I'd say the players, everyone. I mean, pizza was a driving force. Don't get me wrong. Rip didn't have, but Rip would be like, "Hey, we can do this, we can do that." Like, pizza was a driving force. But then we had guys that loved to fight, like Rob and Brad, and we had Brent Hughes at one point. We had Bob Bugner. We had tough teams, and we'd sit in the dressing room before the game and go, "Okay, I got Grimson in the first period. Okay, I got him in the second. All right, I got Proby in the first. I got him in the second." And you like angle to see who is gonna. I'd always be like, "Okay, well, I got him third. When he's really tired, that's when I'll take him."
Now, the next couple of years, you move around a little bit and you end up in New York, which is where you should be. Now, they must have loved you there because you had some good years there. Talk to us about that whole experience with the Rangers.
Yeah, I went to Pittsburgh because I wasn't playing a lot. I went to Tampa because I wasn't playing a lot in Pittsburgh at the time. We had Herb Brooks as our coach. We had Kevin Costine, who's a douchebag, terrible coach. Very good X's and O's. Then we had Herbie Brooks that came in for a short period of time. Awesome. Then I played for Ivan Holinka. God rest his soul. Passed away. He liked me. He just didn't really respect the North American game and what I brought to the table. But he was a great, great guy. Really good guy. So Craig Patrick, I asked him, and he moved me within days to Tampa. Torts didn't appreciate my style. And Torts is a good guy away from the rink. He's an asshole at the rink, but a good guy away from the rink. I went to New York, and you go to New York, and you got Mark Messier and Peter Nedved, and we ended up having Bure and Yager. We had everyone. We had a $91 million payroll in 2001. I mean, think of that. 10 million more than it is now in 2001, 21 years ago. So I was real excited. I thought I was going to have a chance to win a cup there, and it just didn't work out. We never made the playoffs in almost the 3 years that I was there. But I had an opportunity after maybe a couple off seasons to regain my confidence. I played with Peter Nedved, then I played with Lindros, then I played with Messier as a center. So, you know, I was playing lots. I was playing the right appropriate amount of time and had a lot of success. And MSG is the best place to play in the world, man. I wish we would have made the playoffs and had better runs in the playoffs. But to be there, have a chance to play for that organization that treated us first class, and to play in front of those fans was pretty darn awesome.
Well, I can tell you one thing. It was one of the worst places for visiting teams to go and play. First of all, you're down. You got to come out in the corner. The glass was terrible. I mean, if you play there all the time, you know what the glass is going to do, where the puck's going to go. But when you're the visitor, you don't. And, I mean, and the fans were crazy. And, I mean, like New York City itself was just crazy. I mean, the night before you're trying to sleep, the dumpsters are banging and crashing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, New York is definitely a different bird. Like, you got to sleep in a hotel the day of the game because you can't get back. The traffic, but you know, for atmosphere as a home person, oh my God, I loved it as a visitor only because it was. I loved going to New York. I love the restaurants. I like the nightlife, whatever it may be. Not that we went out the night before a game, but just to experience, because you know, I never really had that. I never played in a big city. I never was really in a big city for a long period of time. So after games was really cool. I loved traveling there as a visitor, but man, was it's nuts. One of the craziest things, I think it was like my fourth game. I'm sitting on the bench and I'm like, what the fuck are they chanting? And they're like, Potvin sucks. I'm like,
Yeah,
there's no Potvin on the other fucking team. Like, who the fuck is it? They're like, Dennis Potvin. I'm like, why are they chanting Dennis Potvin? He hasn't played the league in 20 years. They're like, it was a knee thing, and he's just arch enemy was the Islanders. I'm like, all right, pretty awesome. But every game for 3 years, I heard the chant Potvin sucks at least 3 times, which is just it's an emotional place. And then you come in when you're out of the playoffs, and they'd be like, okay, we don't care if we win, just beat the Devils and the Islanders. That's all we care about.
Well, no, and with the Islanders, if you go to an Islander game, they could be playing New Jersey, and they'll do all these chants, and all of a sudden there'll be one, they scream, Rangers suck.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of it all. And this continuous battle between them all. Now, you mentioned Mark Messier a minute ago, Barney. What is it about him, and his name comes up a lot, obviously, in this show, that separates him as a leader from the rest?
I'd say first of all, he's an amazing player, one of the best to ever play, right? His numbers speak for itself, and we know that. It's his preparation and commitment and just having belief. We didn't have success there, but he's a guy, he's like a general. You're going to follow him. And he doesn't speak a ton in the room. Not that he doesn't speak, but he doesn't waste words. I'm going to be the running my mouth all day long in the room. And I was going to say half, well, 3/4 of what comes out of my mouth is gibberish. With him, when he has something to speak, it's because it's like super, super important. And he wants guys to buy in. So I just say his commitment. When I play with him, he's a little older, but in tremendous shape and took care of himself. And just his belief in himself, but his vision for the team where we have to go. So we didn't have the success with him, but I can certainly see on a different team that it would have been there. He's a tremendous person. He was who I turned to first, him and Eric Lindros, to write my forwards for my book, because they're completely different. But Mark Messier as a leader, pretty incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I played against him for a number of years, and it's funny because when you think of the Edmonton Oilers, who I played against with Gretzky and all those guys, but the name that always came up on the top was Messier. It was like, he's the leader of this team. And you're thinking Gretzky, Curry, Anderson, Fuhrer. I mean, the list goes on. But the name that was always brought up when it came to leadership was Messier, and you could see that.
There's a Messier stare that not many people have in the sports world, right? Like there's Gretz's, his numbers are absolutely insane, will never be touched, even with Connor McDavid, 23 points in 10 games. Those will never be touched. But there's a Mark Messier stare that he doesn't have to put up 3 points He doesn't have to score a hat trick to change the game. And when he decides to turn that on, even at his age, that when I played with him, you could see be like, holy fuck, I can't imagine this guy at 26 years old with that stare, because he literally would break your face with an elbow or a stick and it wouldn't bother him one bit.
Well, I can tell you, he played for the Cincinnati Stingers in the WHA the year I played in Birmingham. He was 17 years old. And, I mean, even then you could see the leadership qualities that he had as a 17-year-old playing against men. And, and then, of course, the rest is history, the career he had and Stanley Cups and everything else.
Now, Barney, you've been known as a good chipper on the ice. And by the way, we want to thank you for taking all this time with us here today. We know how busy of a guy you are, and we really, really appreciate it. And our listeners are going to love this. You've been known as a good chirper on the ice. Any opponents you can think of that matched your wits in this regard?
Wow, I'd go with a better chipper, because I chip the puck out in a lot. I have a good chipping story because we go back to when I was a rookie in Buffalo, and I tried to deke out Doug Bodger at the blue line.
Yeah.
And John Muckler blew the whistle, and he's like, "Barney, come on in." And I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, I just try to move, whatever. And he's like, "How many points did you get in junior last year?" I'm like, 111. He's like, "You'll never even fucking get close to that in this league. Chip the puck in, kid. Just chip it in." So the next shift, I chipped the puck in, and I ran over Peter Sabota. And he's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" This is a veteran of 12 years at the time. I'm like, "I guess I'm going to chip the puck and just hit everything in sight." He's like, "That's a pretty good idea." But I ran him over. It was really good? Steve Ott. Really good.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Ott was good. I was always in Eric Lindros's kitchen. He was easy to get under the skin. Obviously, he gave me a lot of material with everything that happened before he got in the NHL and when he got in the NHL. I think he was easy for me. Steve Ott was great. The only time, because I never let people bother me, and some of my favorite chirps, like, I won't use names, but a coach was yelling at me, calling him a pussy and this and that. And there was a tough guy on the other team. He's like, "I'm going to send my tough guy out to kick the shit out of you." I go, "All right, no problem." And he goes, "You're a pussy. You're a pussy." And I just remember looking at him and going, "Thank God you're not on the ice, because you would have snorted the goal line, the red line, and the blue line in your days playing in the 80s." And he lost his mind. And he sends out the guy to fight me, and he goes, "Hey, I just have to make it look like I want to fight you, but that's one of the best lines I've ever heard in my life." And then I remember this one guy, I won't use his name either.
No, that's fine.
Mike Pekka. And he was chirping me. He was chirping me from the bench, and I just looked down and I go, "Hey, did your defenseman tell you when he tapped your wife?" And that drew silence from the defenseman, who was my friend, which was offside by me. But my favorite ever was Kenny Johnson, who was, I think, a first rounder to the New York Islanders. Poor kid, he was like 18 years old, acne in his face, like the worst acne I've ever seen. And he came by our bench, and I yelled, "Hey, Kenny, in North America, we eat the pizza. We don't sleep in it." But the only time I was ever got, because I never listened to people, because they were pretty good. Like, "I know what you're trying to do. Get me off my game. Take a penalty, whatever it may be. Hurt my feelings." All right. I never knew my dad growing up, and we were playing Washington in the playoffs, and I said something really nasty that would not be good right now in 2022. And I said it to Chris Simon, because he was chirping me the whole game, and I said something nasty to him back.
Yeah.
And he just looks at me when we're in the penalty box. He goes, "How's your dad?" And I was like, "Motherfucker, that one actually hurt." I go, "That one actually hurt," because anything that's real hurts. You can call me a pussy or whatever. Like, that's not going to hurt my feelings. But how's your dad, when I didn't know my dad and he left me before I was born? Like, that hurts. So we had the same agent. I called my agent the next day. I go, "Did you tell Chris about that?" He goes, "No." I'm like, "Motherfucker, how do you figure this shit out?" How did he find the shit out? So that's the only time I got hurt.
That's a pretty good one. Now,
yeah,
Squid.
That's well, it's funny. You get that information and you just keep it quiet, and then when it's time to use it, you just fire it. It's like you have to. I mean, if you want to get under someone's skin, especially guys like yourself, and like I said, I was kind of the same way. I didn't listen to anybody. I didn't give a shit, what they were saying to me or anything, and I just let it kind of roll off my back. But there was a few things that hurt, and when something like that comes out, boy, it stings.
Well, when we were in game 2 when you're in the playoffs, and a guy two-handed me and called me a pussy again. Whoa, wow, you called me a pussy. Ooh. Yeah. And I just looked, I go, hey, you better lay off. Because I know you're banging a girl in Montreal, and you want your wife to find out about this. And we were on the ice, and he was fucking rattled. When I tell you the next 5 games, he didn't say a fucking word. He didn't come fucking near me. In the lineup at the end of the series, he shakes my hand. He's like, hey, how do you know this? I'm like, I'm banging her friend.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Now, if you're doing the chirping, were you a prankster too?
I was not crazy extents, but yeah. No, I love to have a lot of fun.
Any you can share with us?
Yeah, the funniest one. I was just with Todd Simpson. Played with him in Chicago, and Marty Lapointe was my roommate on the road. We were in Chicago, and we were at a Christmas party with wives. Everyone was there, and the restaurant we were at, half of it was a restaurant, half of it was like a clothing store. But there was only like a little divider, literally a cloth divider that separated the two. It was owned by the same people, but they're like, it is what it is. So halfway through, me and Marty Lapointe had a couple drinks. We're like, hey, this would be funny. Let's go over here, dress in like really tight clothing, come back and start dancing. So we go in, we take our clothes off, we put our stuff in, we come back. It's like Night at the Roxbury, and we're dancing in like this tight clothing. So we're doing it for about an hour. But we're like, all right, getting a little chilly. It's near Christmas time, and like we're cold. So we go to put our clothes back on, nowhere to be found. So Todd Simpson and a bunch of the guys, Jimmy Dowd, they had stolen our clothes. So the whole night, now we're in like spandex at this Christmas party, tight shirts, nipples out in the air, like the whole thing. I end up getting stopped on the way home by the cops, and they're like, "Why are you like half naked? Don't you play for the Hawks?" And we're like, "Long story, whatever." So we go home. I'm like, not gonna end like this. So anyone that's seen the movie Seven, we get off the ice. We bolt after practice the next day. Don't say a word to anyone. I get the keys to our equipment van because we're not playing for a week. So we don't need to pick up anyone. Our equipment van's free. I get the keys to it, and we steal everyone's clothes, their cell phones, their credit cards. You name it, we had it. Now, guys got to pick up kids from school. They got doctor's appointments. They have no money whatsoever. And every night we'd come back to my house, me and Marty, and we'd do like where we'd leave like clues, and we just drop it off in the middle of the room at the start of practice. And I got wives calling me, going like, "We need it back. Like, we need their car keys. We need their wallets. We like, they got to pick up kids from school." I'm like, yeah. When you start something, I've never been one to start something, but I love to finish it. If you want to get in the war of words, I'm usually not going to start it with you post career, but I trust me, I will make you cry at the end. So it went on for about 4 days.
Jesus!
Yeah, it was pretty good. And Todd Simpson goes, probably the best thing I've ever seen. It was ruthless and mean and terrible. But yes.
Oh. We are
especially in Chicago. I mean, you need a car to get around. That's a big city.
Yeah, you're not in Buffalo.
Yeah.
Now, So Barney, just another couple of minutes here. We want to finish off. Maybe tell us about your book. That's coming out in the fall, you're saying, and what's the theme of the book? Your career, obviously, but do you have any sort of theme to it?
Yeah, well, I guess the theme would just be being unfiltered, like on this podcast. A lot of the same stories, a little deeper into it. Just failures along the way, because we all have them, and learning from them. I came from nothing. I'm very proud of how what I accomplished, which I don't even know if that's a thing, whatever it is. Not to quit, don't listen to people trying to put you in a box or telling you what you can and can't do. And then just being very honest. A lot of the stories, a lot of saying when Rob Ray made out with a guy stripper that was a girl that he didn't know about. Night with Dennis Rodman, where I shit my pants in Chicago. Me and Brad May made a bet for $500 who was going to fight Bob Probert first. And then we sobered up.
Well, what's funny? It's you say that because it's so true. And I mean, that was probably the biggest reason why I wrote my book was I think if you look at fans, if they think you're in the NHL, NBA, Major League Baseball, NFL, whatever it might be, oh, he must have had a perfect life. Everything must have been great. No. Guess what? You know what? Most of the guys that got to the National Hockey League, they had roadblocks somewhere along the way, or there was issues somewhere along the way. And they had to either get over them, around them, or through them. And if you don't persevere and get through those things, you're not going to have any success. And I think that's so true. Yourself is a perfect person for that. You picked a role that you needed to play in order to play in the National Hockey League, and you got it done. You played a long time. And I think that's very, very important that people realize that, we're human.
Yeah.
And we're normal people, and we have problems, and we have things that we have to overcome.
Listen, if you don't make a mistake in life, yeah. Listen, I've made some mistakes. There's also been some fallacy about it too, where you like to clear up. And part of it was writing a book where I could control the narrative on the truth, because when there's social media and there's so many things, no one has to say sorry for reporting things that are wrong. When there's things that come out in the media, sometimes you write, it's called clickbait. So they write the story for clickbait, but they never have to write a response to being wrong about the facts. It doesn't have to happen. And in my book, I get to report it on the truth with documentation on all of it. That was very important to me, not only for my fans out there, because most are understanding, and some people can be idiots. We've seen with Nazem Kadri, just in what people can say to people, hiding behind a keyboard. And that was very important to me, not only for me, but for my kids, because I've embarrassed my kids a few times, and that's my fault. Not that I haven't made mistakes, and I take full responsibility for my mistakes, and I hope I don't make any more to the extent that it was. But I think that was very important in the therapeutic part of all that went along. So I'm very proud of
Barney, we've all made mistakes. I mean, there's no question about that. And, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm just thankful that social media and cell phones with cameras weren't around when I was playing.
Well,
if there were, I wouldn't have a book.
Well, I'm not so sure about that, but now listen, Barney, I got to tell you, like the biggest thing we hear from people a lot when we first started this podcast was, listen, people really don't give a shit that you took a pass from Barney, went over the blue line, roofed it, and scored 3 more like that. They don't want to hear that. They want to hear, you shit your pants, how you made a $500 bet drunk to fight Rob Probert. They want to find out, how you dressed up like a girl and then you stole all the guys' equipment as retribution for them getting you. That's what they want to hear. They want to hear the human side and what you guys do, experiencing away from the rink as a professional athlete, but more along the lines, just as a regular guy.
You guys are awesome. And in ending, I don't know if I was human that night. I shit my pants because it felt like I was an alien.
What I
Hey,
said,
let me just tell you, you're not the first person to ever do that.
It
Well,
never
I-
happened twice.
yeah, that they don't want. So, okay, you're a quick study. Now, Barney, listen, we want to thank you so much for joining us today. Best of luck when the book comes out. Listen, maybe we'll get you back on again when it comes out. We'll talk about the book. Definitely going to be a great read, and I'm sure people are going to be entertained after they hear this podcast of what's in store with the book. So, again, thanks so much for this.
Hey,
Barney, thanks a lot, pal.
Hey, Squid, cheers, and keep up the awesome work, guys.